Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today I want to talk to you about the importance of boredom. Alright, so this is something that I actually have been wanting to talk about for a long time because of the world that we live in, and it is totally crazy, and the absolute fundamental resistance that we as a human race have to being bored, right? And this kind of idea of nothing going on, nothing happening, not being stimulated. And again, before I get started here, I really want to tell you that this, again, is coming from a very humble place because I am just like everybody else and struggled very, very much in my life with doing everything that I could to avoid boredom at every turn, and was continually overstimulated, continually filling my life with drama and things and distractions to keep myself from ever being still, because I get it. I know where that comes from. I understand why we do that, so that's what I'm going to get into. But so just, again, coming to you from a place of like, I get it, right? I'm not telling you that like I woke up or I was born and I was just like cool with being bored and I could just be still and it was no problem for me, okay? I'm gonna tell you stories in this video about my own struggle with boredom and right, we all go through it. So that's the first thing. And then the second reason that I wanted to make this video is because of how important boredom is, right? Because as much as we don't want to hear this in our society, the most important place that most of us are going to allow ourselves to journey to next on our journey is the place of boredom, because there is so much power and there's so much amazingness in boredom that we are not understanding as a culture, and we need to if we want to find peace. Okay, so the first thing that I kind of want to give you in this conversation about boredom is that, right, we live in a society that is essentially set up to make sure that you never have to be bored. You've got a phone, you've got Facebook, you've got the TV, you've got magazines, you've got family drama, friends drama, like we're hyper connected to each other. You've got the internet, you have books, you have food, you have like ridiculous food that's super entertaining for your brain and gets you addicted. We have drugs, we have sex, we have literally every reason ever to never have to be bored, right? And this is something that we must understand as we are, if we are having kind of a journey where we would like to awaken and come to a deeper sense of internal peace and internal connection with ourselves, and learn to integrate these wounded parts of ourselves that I'm always talking about in this video, and self-love and all of this stuff. All of this depends upon your capacity to be bored, okay? And so like I say, the world is set up so that you never have to be bored, okay? So the first thing to understand is that to seek out boredom and to allow it to happen to you and not run away is going to be difficult, because there are 1.5 million temptations out there, right? It's so easy to just check your phone, to just go on Facebook, to just turn on the TV, to just go get a snack, to just something, right? Something to stimulate yourself. You are surrounded, right? And I'm surrounded. And so understanding that when you start to approach this journey of allowing yourself to get bored after I tell you the benefits of it, is that it's going to be a struggle. And I want you to expect that, okay? Before we even get into this, it's going to be a struggle, not only just being bored, but getting yourself to a place where you have the opportunity to be bored, right? Where you have enough discipline to allow yourself to get bored, okay? And so that is the first key. Know that's going to be challenging, and you're going to be tempted at every turn to abandon boredom, and that you're going to have to stick with it. You're going to have to push through. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be against everything that you want to do, and that's okay, all right? So when I first started meditating, right, and I set this thing for myself that I was going to meditate for an hour a day every day, come hell or high water, I was going to sit still and meditate for an hour a day. And, right, that sounds beautiful and lovely and so virtuous and blah, blah, blah. Now, the reality of it is, okay, for the first 6 to 8 months, that hour every day was excruciating. It was so boring, right? Really, at the end of the day, it was incredibly boring, right? You get into meditation, you find your peace, right? You kind of deal with the, you get rid of the distractions or whatever, and the first thing that hits you, right? So it's one of these two things. Either all the undealt with emotional stuff that you haven't, right, looked at, and the pain and this blah, 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 is going to come and hit you in the face, right? Or the second thing that's going to happen, and this is, I think, more common, is you're going to expect to have this experience, right? To have emotions come up that you can deal with. You're going to expect to be able to, like, use some of these meditation tools that you've been taught, and to deal with this or to deal with that or to look at this or to look with that. And what's actually going to happen is you're just going to sit there, you're going to realize you're uncomfortable, and your body feels weird, and you're just kind of not really thinking about anything, and it's only been 3 minutes, and you have 57 minutes left, and oh my God, there's nothing happening, right? And that, just like that moment of panic that you might experience when you realize that it's just going to be you sitting for an hour, like nothing's going to happen, right? And because this is, I guess, a big thing that I want to say is, like, I understand that I put out all these videos about, you know, revelations in meditation and taking your emotions into your heart space room and having all of these, you know, experiences while we're on this awakening path. And that's definitely true. That's definitely a part of it. But I believe, and this has been my experience, okay, that get into a place where you are capable of having true revelatory experiences, okay, and you are able to sit with your emotions long enough for them to actually reveal something to you, to sit with your thoughts for long enough for them to actually reveal something to you, to sit still in what is arising for long enough to have an experience. You first have to learn to sit through the boredom, because that is the training wheels for the stamina, the emotional, mental, and physical stamina you need in order to facilitate these expansive revelatory experiences in your spiritual practice. So if you're starting your spiritual practice, or you're starting your meditation, or you've been doing it for a while or whatever, and you're realizing that a lot of it is just boring, a lot of it is just nothing is happening, nothing is really going on, nothing is actually coming up, or stuff comes up and you can't quite grasp it, you can't quite sit with it, you can't quite maintain the focus in your heart space room or in your whatever tool you're using to really get to a revelation place, right? You just kind of jump to that thing that you always think. You jump to that thing that you always feel. You jump to the conclusion you always make that isn't making your life different. This is because you haven't learned the stamina of sitting through boredom. You haven't taken the time to allow that conditioning to happen that must happen when we face boredom. So this is the biggest thing that I want you to realize, is that boredom is the initial training that we are all going to go through as we are awakening, because the true reality of our awakening experiences is, number one, they are subtle compared to what we are used to in our stimulating world, okay? To truly be able to sit with your emotions, to sit with your thoughts, to sit with what's truly coming up for you and allow that revelation to take place, okay? That is actually a very subtle experience. It's not this big, loud, popping thing in your face. And if it feels like that to you, because you're having that experience, know that that's because you have actually detoxed yourself from the absolute overwhelming, kind of overstimulation of the world. For most people who are addicted to stimulation, which is what we are as a human race, right? The subtle experiences of meditation, the subtle experiences of awakening, the subtle experiences in yoga, these subtle little revelations that we have on the awakening path look and feel like nothing to you. Because they're not big, and they're not flashy, and they're not all encompassing most of the time, okay? The true work that we're gonna do as someone who's on a spiritual path is gonna be little tiny super subtle things every day. It's that lead to big revelations every once in a while, but most of the time it's gonna be a lot of nothing. It's gonna be a lot of very just little tiny shifts, super tiny little, almost imperceptible things going on. And boredom is truly just a symptom and a sign that you are right now addicted to being overstimulated, to being over entertained, to being over numbed out, okay? And the second thing to realize is that because these healing and integrating and spiritual experiences that we're going to have are actually quite subtle, right? We need to realize that most of us run from boredom, okay? Not because boredom in and of itself is so horrible, okay? But because of what happens inside boredom, right? What we're really running from most of the time when we're running from boredom is the emotions that are going to surface when we don't have a distraction, right? When we're not being stimulated, when we're not being upped or downed, right? When we're not being flashed in the face with the immediate thing that we need to worry about, right? That's when all these under the surface emotions and feelings and things are going to come up. And I think that, you know, one of the theories that I have is that this idea of boredom, right? That nothing's happening and I don't like it and I don't want to be bored, right? I don't want to sit here for an hour and just have nothing happen because that's horrible. That's boring, right? It's a defense mechanism, right? To be afraid of boredom and to run from the stillness is a defense mechanism we have to the deeper, more uncomfortable emotions, feelings, thoughts that are going to arise when we sit still, okay? It's really not actually the boredom you don't like. It's the idea that you have an inkling and you know that under that boredom is a bunch of stuff that you don't want to look at and you don't want to feel and that you have been stimulating yourself to not look at and feel, right? And so the first step is to have compassion for yourself, right? It's okay that you don't want to be bored. It's okay that you resist boredom, right? Watch yourself do that. Watch yourself sit in meditation, not have an experience and be like, this is boring, nothing's happening, right? And want to get up and walk away. And what I'm going to say to you is don't. Sit with that boredom. Really be with the nothingness. And let that experience happen to you, right? Just let yourself be bored. And as simple as this sounds, it needs to be said. Because I think a lot of us really judge if nothing's happening and we're bored, that's really bad. That's wrong. That shouldn't be happening. That's an emergency situation. I have myself watched myself completely flip out. Like have an actual anxiety attack inside my meditation practice because I was bored and nothing was happening. And I knew that I was going to be bored for the next 57 minutes, right? And just that idea that I wasn't going to be stimulated, something wasn't going to happen, freaked me out, okay? And so if you're having that experience, right, there's so much resistance to you, inside of you, to that boredom, the thing that you need to do is let yourself be bored. You really have to let yourself be bored. You have to sit with it. And you have to say, okay, what is so bad about this, right? Just like my other video about leaning in and getting curious, right? What is this boredom all about? Maybe explore this boredom. How does it feel? How does it feel in my body? How does it feel in my mind? What am I telling myself about this boredom, right? What are all the stories that I'm making up about boredom and why it shouldn't be happening and why it's bad and why it's wrong and all the scary things that I think are gonna happen inside of this boredom, right? That's the first thing. You have to let yourself get bored. If you really want to awaken, boredom is key. Like boredom is helping you. So we need to understand that, right? Boredom is a step on the path. Boredom is a step on the path. Boredom is a step on the path. It's an incredibly important step on the path. We need to learn to be okay with not being hyper overstimulated, right? We need to understand that hyper overstimulation that we live in our world and in our culture is a distraction, right? We're constantly distracted. This is part of the reason we don't awaken, and that awakening is hard, right? Because it's subtle and we want to avoid things. We want to be stimulated because we don't want reality, bare reality how it is, right? We're constantly running from reality. We're running from the reality of how we feel. We're running from the reality of what we think. We're running from the reality of ourselves. We're running from the reality of who we are. And boredom, right, is the transition period between being stimulated and being able to access all of these parts of yourself that need love and compassion. And boredom is what happens in the middle. And so we have to go through boredom. You have to let yourself build the stamina of getting curious about boredom, getting aware of boredom, allowing yourself to sit in boredom even though it's uncomfortable. Because this is what I'm going to say, right? On the other side of that, when you build those muscles, I could sit with boredom, right? I was bored and I didn't want to be bored, and I wanted to move and I wanted to shift and I wanted to do something different, and I didn't. It was uncomfortable and I stuck with it and I didn't die. Nothing happened, right? It was okay. That's teaching your brain that when your sadness comes up, you can do the same thing. You can sit with your sadness. You can be with your sadness. You don't have to run away from it even though you want to. It's not going to destroy you the way that you think that it is, right? And you can sit with your anger, and you can sit with your resentment, and you can sit with your fear, and you can sit with your panic, and you can start to be with all these other deeper, truer emotions, truer thoughts, things that need attention, right? Because you practiced on boredom. You learned how to stay in the uncomfortable thing and get through to the other side and see that it didn't kill you. And that's what you're going to need for emotional mastery. That's what you're going to need for awakening. You have to be okay with subtlety, and you have to be okay with intense emotions that you learn not to run away from, right? So understand that your psychology is handing you boredom before it hands you deep emotional existential sadness that you have, because if you can't do boredom, you're not going to be able to do deep existential sadness, right? Because overall, the whole point of this is awareness. Sitting with what is. That is what meditation is. It's sitting with what is long enough for it to reveal the truth to you, right? It's you have a false belief. That's what's causing you pain. There's reality and there's your expectation, and they are juxtaposed, and that's what causes you pain. That's what causes you suffering. And the way to freedom from suffering is to sit with something long enough that you can understand it, right? That you don't run from it. You let it teach you something. That's all it is. It's very simple, right? Awakening is super simple. It's just being with what is long enough that it can teach you what it's there to teach you. And then you're not in pain and you don't suffer because you understand reality better. But if we can't be with boredom, we're never going to be able to be with that sadness. We're never going to be able to be with that part of ourselves that we hate, right? And then get to the other side of understanding these parts of ourselves and really truly seeing where our power was and all the revelations that come from that come out of simply sitting and being and observing, right? That's what this whole channel is all about. It's releasing resistance. So boredom is going to come up first as your training wheels, right? Boredom is there to teach you how to sit and be. So you practice on boredom, so when the sadness comes up, the anger comes up, the part of yourself that you hate the most comes up, you know how to sit with the uncomfortable emotion and not run away. You have the stamina to be with it and get curious about it and learn from it rather than judging it as wrong and running away or trying to fix it, right? That is what this is. Boredom is there to teach you the stamina you need for the deeper, subtler experiences. And to allow yourself to be bored in our day and age, you are going to have a much deeper understanding of how everything works than the average person because you're not distracted, right? And the distraction keeps us short-sighted. It keeps us not understanding systems, and therefore we keep doing the same things over and over again because we don't understand how things work. So you let yourself get bored, you're going to understand how things work. It's that simple. So get bored. Be bored. Let yourself be bored. Freak out that you're bored and do nothing. Sit with it. Be uncomfortable. Don't run away from it. Okay? Don't follow your bliss on this one. Follow the pain. All right, questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Like, subscribe, join Patreon, and I will see you in the next video.